The mirror had been lying to me for years, or so I thought. Every morning I would stand before it, cataloging my flaws with the precision of a jeweler examining a stone for imperfections. Too wide here, too narrow there, not quite right anywhere. The reflection staring back at me was a stranger I had grown to resent. My name is Jens, and for 28 years I had been at war with myself. It started small, as these things often do. A comment from a classmate in middle school about my voice being too soft, a passing remark from a relative about my career choices, a rejection that I internalized as proof of my inadequacy. These moments, insignificant to others, became the foundation upon which I built an entire architecture of self-doubt. I became an expert at self-criticism. I could find fault faster than anyone else could offer praise. When someone complimented my work, I would immediately think of 5 ways it could have been better. When friends said I did well, I would dismiss it as politeness. I had become so accustomed to being my own harshest judge that kindness from others felt like a foreign language I could no longer speak. The turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in a coffee shop, laptop open, pretending to work while actually scrolling through social media. Everyone else's life looked so perfect, so curated, so effortlessly successful. I felt the familiar ache of inadequacy settling into my chest like an old friend taking their usual seat. Then I overheard a conversation at the next table. A father was speaking to his young son, maybe 5 or 6 years old. "Papa, why don't you like yourself?" the boy asked, with the brutal honesty only children possess. The father paused, and I could hear the weight in his silence. "What makes you think that, Beta?" "Because you're always saying mean things about yourself. You say you're not good enough or you made mistakes, but I think you're the best papa ever." I stopped scrolling. The words hung in the air between their table and mine, but they felt like they had been spoken directly to me. "You're right, son," the father said, his voice cracking slightly. "I should be kinder to myself. Thank you for reminding me." That conversation echoed in my mind for days. Would I speak to a child the way I spoke to myself? Would I tell a friend the things I told myself every day? The answer was a resounding no, and that realization was both devastating and liberating. I decided to try an experiment. For 30 days, I would practice treating myself the way I treated people I loved. The first day was harder than I expected. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, and instead of my usual litany of criticisms, I tried to say something kind. The words caught in my throat. I felt ridiculous, but I forced myself to speak. "You're doing your best," I said to my reflection. It felt hollow, unconvincing, but I had started, and that was something. By day 5, I was still struggling. The negative thoughts came automatically, like reflexes I had trained too well, but I started noticing them more consciously. Each time I caught myself thinking something harsh, I would pause and ask, would I say this to someone I care about? Usually the answer was no. On day 12, something shifted. I was having dinner with an old friend, Rohan, who I hadn't seen in months. He was telling me about a difficult situation at work, and I found myself offering him the kind of compassionate, understanding advice I had never given myself.
"You're being too hard on yourself," I told him. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is that you learn from them and keep moving forward." As the words left my mouth, I realized I was speaking to him the way I needed to speak to myself. Rohan noticed something in my expression. "You okay, Bai?" he asked. "Actually," I said, "I'm trying to learn how to love myself." Rohan's eyes widened, and then he smiled. "That's amazing, Arjun. How's it going?" "It's hard," I admitted. "I've spent so long being my own worst enemy that being my own friend feels strange." "You know what?" Rohan said, leaning forward. I've always admired how kind you are to everyone else. Your empathy, your understanding, the way you see the best in people. I've always wished you could see yourself the way others see you." His words struck something deep within me. I had never considered that the kindness I showed others might be something I deserved too. The experiment continued. On day 18, I started keeping a journal where I wrote 3 things I appreciated about myself each day. At first, they were superficial. I have neat handwriting, or I made a good cup of chai. But gradually, they deepened. I helped a colleague without expecting anything in return. I set a boundary with someone who was treating me poorly. I chose to rest when I needed it instead of pushing myself to exhaustion. By day 25, something remarkable happened. I was getting ready for work, running late as usual, and I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, my first thought wasn't a criticism. Instead, I found myself thinking, "You've got this." It was small, but it was real. The 30-day experiment ended, but the practice didn't. I realized that loving myself wasn't a destination I would arrive at someday. It was a daily choice, a continuous practice, like meditation or exercise. Some days were easier than others. Some days the old patterns of self-criticism would creep back in, comfortable and familiar. But I had learned to recognize them now. I had learned to pause, to breathe, to choose a different response. 3 months into my journey, I faced my biggest test. I had been working on a major project at work, something I had poured my heart into. When the presentation day arrived, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The technology failed, I stumbled over my words, and I could see disappointment in my manager's eyes. The old me would have spiraled. I would have replayed every mistake in my mind for weeks, used it as evidence of my inadequacy, maybe even considered quitting. But instead, I sat with the discomfort. I acknowledged that yes, things had gone poorly. Yes, I felt embarrassed and disappointed. But I also recognized that one bad presentation didn't define my worth. I had worked hard. I had tried my best with the circumstances I was given. And most importantly, I was human, and humans make mistakes. That evening, I called my younger sister, Priya. She was in college, studying psychology, and we had always been close. "Didi needs some advice," I said, using the term of endearment she had called me since childhood, even though I was her older brother. I told her what had happened, and she listened without judgment. "You know what I think?" she said finally. "I think you're being incredibly brave, not just today, but in general. You're learning to love yourself, and that's one of the hardest things a person can do." "It doesn't feel brave," I admitted. "Sometimes it feels selfish." "That's the trap, isn't it?" Priya said. "We're taught that putting ourselves first is selfish, but there's a difference between selfishness and self-care, between arrogance and self-love. You're not hurting anyone by being kind to yourself. In fact, I think you're probably kinder to others now because you're not running on empty all the time." She was right. I had noticed that as I became gentler with myself, I had more patience for others. The constant internal battle had been exhausting, leaving little energy for genuine connection. Now, with more inner peace, I found myself more present, more available, more authentically engaged with the people around me. 6 months into my journey, I started noticing physical changes too. The tension I had carried in my shoulders for years began to ease. I slept better. My appetite normalized. It was as if my body, finally receiving kindness from my mind, was beginning to heal. I also started taking risks I had been too afraid to take before. I signed up for a photography class and started writing again, not for recognition, but simply because it brought me joy. I let myself be a beginner, to be imperfect, to learn. One evening, I found an old childhood photograph of myself, 7 years old, grinning with gap-toothed joy,
completely unself-conscious and free. I realized that self-love wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about returning to that natural state of self-acceptance we're all born with. A year later, at my birthday gathering, I spoke from the heart. Real growth came when I learned to be my own friend, I told my loved ones. Loving myself doesn't mean I love others less. It means I love more authentically because I'm no longer trying to fill a void inside me. The journey continues. There are still difficult days, but they're becoming fewer. I've learned that my worth isn't determined by my achievements or others' opinions. My worth simply is because I exist. Today, when I stand before the mirror, I see someone I'm learning to love. Not because I'm perfect, but because I'm worthy of love exactly as I am. The reflection is no longer an enemy, but a friend. I love myself the way the sun loves the earth, consistently, unconditionally, generously. And that has made all the difference.